afternoon, October 19th, 2020, and welcome to the Voice Restoration broadcast, our weekly prophetic summary of what we feel like the Lord is saying that week, what we're hearing from the Lord. And I try not to go too long on these. Sometimes I do. I apologize for that. But before we get started, would you do me a favor? Would you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on the little bell icon, hit all notifications so you know when we put out another video. We do at least 2 a week, sometimes 3. So you might want to know when that comes out. I have different things I do. So go ahead and do that. And as always, there is a bunch of links in there that gives you ways that you could support the ministry. Plus, we've also started our Voice for Restoration podcast. And that video comes up, but if you want to listen to it in iTunes, and it's on Spotify, it is on Anchor. There's a couple links in the list below that you can go ahead and find which one that you use. I personally use iTunes, and it's the one that I most likely would listen to anyone else's podcast. And I do have a bunch of my library. So a lot of things going on, and we are now 15 days away from the election. I know that I actually believe Trump's going to win. Now, I'm not telling you I'm hearing that, but I've been praying, and when I feel something that's coming against me, it's not God. God doesn't come against me. God doesn't bring fear. God doesn't bring turmoil. And you have to kind of shut off the voices. I prophesied back in, I think I told someone in January, I think I prophesied it, that Trump was going to wait until October before he released some stuff on Hunter Biden, or on Biden, that there's something would come out, and that's when this stuff would start hitting. Because the way the news cycle works is if he started in February, they'd have 5-6 months of being able to shape the lies they want to shape about it. And lo and behold, we have found out that Hunter Biden is kind of a crooked drug addict. He is the source of the pay-to-play for the Biden family, was for the VP when he was vice president. And he certainly is was selling seats for the presidency. And this is what happens. This is kind of the stuff that happens, how politics works. And I hate it, but it's the game. It's why Trump ran his primary 4 years ago with his own money, because he said, they want to own you. Jeb Bush was owned, $125 million in his pocket before he ever ran. And that's how politics works. And and you would think that Republicans giving would be opposed to the Democrats. You got to understand, all the wealthy pretty much want the same thing. They want cheaper labor. They want open borders for that labor. They'll take money from China because it's all about money to them. And see, Trump loves this country, and that's what upset the apple cart. So it upset it for the Republicans as well as the Democrats. And so I do believe he's going to win. Just look at the enthusiasm that people show up. There was a rally the other night. They had something like 15,000 people in the overflow. Outside. He's doing these at the airport, so they're open air, and he's having 25, 30,000 people show up. It's unbelievable, and it does matter. If we remember in 2012, there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for Mitt Romney. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for John McCain. Okay? John McCain was not the darling, beloved Republican. Neither was Mitt Romney. No one trusts them. Let me just put it that way. No one trusts those two. And I think that a lot of people didn't trust Trump full in on the first election because they just didn't know where he was going to govern from, but they wanted to believe. And I think that won him the first election. They wanted to believe. They knew where Hillary stood. They knew Hillary is a sellout to the country. She was going to give it to the highest bidder, and she's corrupt. They knew that, but they didn't know where Trump was. And going into this election, we've got 4 years of knowing where Trump is. Yes, Trump says stupid things sometimes, sometimes, but that's politics. I don't think people realize, like, when he comes back harsh, we don't realize how we've lost so many elections. And the reason we lose the elections is because we do this. No, I'm not gonna be beneath that. Trump says, hey, look, you punch, I'll punch twice. You hit me, I'll hit you twice. And we sometimes think that is awful, but it's politics. And I wish when Jesus comes, we won't have to worry about these things. We won't have to consume ourselves with these things. But until that day, we're in a total battle all the time. All right, so I do believe we just still have to keep praying. We have to keep forging ahead on this. So that's something that we have to do. All right. A little announcement midway through here. Let me take time to do this now. I do have, if you go to lewisdciena.com, I have a new Secret Place School course that just went up. I've got 2 of the videos on there. You can start the school right now. And I'll have 8 videos on this. So you're going to get 8 total. So you get about 2 a week. So 2 are up. I'll be filming tomorrow, 3, Thursday, 4, and they'll be up. And then it'll just keep going next week, obviously 5, 6, and 7, 8. There is a code. It's on Facebook. I'll tell you the code is Secret Place. One word, Secret Place, is the code, and you'll get 20% off, which is $10 off. It's only $50 total, but you're going to get 16 total videos. And you can go ahead and go to lewisdciena.com, click on the store, and you'll see and you can learn more. And there's some videos about the course. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff on there, so go ahead and do that. If you want to get my emails, then sign up for that. And a lot of different things you can do on that website. So and a lot of free stuff that I don't put on YouTube that's on there. I think there's over 400, 500 videos on there. And a lot of free stuff. So go ahead and put it on your cart. It's yours. It's my gift to you. All right. So, I was reading, I love Esther, and I'm always kind of talking about Esther. And I talk about this in The Secret Place, and I was just reading this as I'm teaching on The Secret Place and our journey and our preparations and all this stuff. A scripture kind of hit me, and the Lord spoke to me and about Reformation and about the apostolic and the prophetic ministries once again have to work together. I don't see a lot of that yet. I think prophets think that they are the head of the church, that they are the greatest mouthpiece out there, or they're the greatest leaders of the church, because in the Old Testament, it was the kings, the apostolic, the kings, the prophets, and the priest. And we're all priests. We're not all prophets, and we're not all necessarily generals or kings. We are a company. He has called us to be kings and priests. We're all royalty, but not kings is dealing with our maturity and stuff like that. I don't want to break that all down now, but it was this verse, and I want you to hear this. Now, in the book of Esther, Mordecai represents the apostolic. Esther represents the church. And every day, it says in verse 11, chapter 2, every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening to her. I believe God is calling the apostolic, the prophetic, and the saints to come up into his courts so he can tell us how the church is doing. I think sometimes we want a prophetic word about this, about that, but how is the church doing? And when I was praying today, the Lord said he's gonna reestablish the apostolic and the prophetic foundations of the church again. There used to be a time. It used to be a time where we talked about the government of God. The structure was Jesus Christ building a house. Jesus Christ was the cornerstone, and then the apostles and prophets were the foundation. This is in Ephesians chapter 2. And then you built on top of it with the teachers, the pastors and the elders, the evangelists and worship leaders. And it was built on top of the foundation of the apostles and prophets. And I can tell you in the last 10 years, we've just abandoned that and gone back to this structure. And this structure is deadly to the church. It is a worldly structure. And it's one that God's going to tear down. He said to me this morning, let me get to it. One of the things I told him is that church bores me. The church does not. No, what I mean by that is the church structure and the way we do things is really boring to me. I'm going to start doing it. We're just coming up on the holidays. We got a wedding coming up next year in the beginning of the year. We've got a lot going on in our house, but I want to once again do prophetic meetings in my house. But you have to have a hungry people. You have to have, I don't want to do another meeting. When I would do these, when I was in Nashville and I started in 2002 doing meetings with 3 women. One of them was a dear friend of Kathy and I's, and she moved up there and she was like, "You're not going to leave me up here." She wanted to move and she was afraid she was going to be left up there. So I said, "I'll come up. We'll do some meetings." I already had one here at my house here. I said, "I'll come up." So, I would go up once a month. I started the first year once a month. It went to 3. Then we had 4 women. And that's a 25% increase. And then we had, 5. Then we went back to 4. And that was a 20% decrease, And before, within 6 months to a year, I started coming up more frequently, every 2 weeks. And we had about 30 consistent, talk about hungry women for God. And these were, I call them the outcast. And why? They were single. And when you're a single woman, everyone either thinks that you're trying to get a mate or, and so men are like all push off. But Sherry Shutt, who you might have heard me mention, is a dear friend of mine, been my friend. Her mother was our nanny, but she's been our friend since April of '94. That's how far back we go. Now, I knew of her before that, but I didn't know her. I met her in April of '94. And her daughter, Stacy, she calls me Uncle Lou, she's their family. And those meetings we would start at 3:00 on a Sunday and not get done until 11 to midnight. 11 o'clock to midnight, we were done. And we would sit down and we go, okay, we were just like, what I would do is I would teach for 2 hours. And then I would put on worship music because I was teaching them about the presence. I was teaching them way back then about how to access God, how to go into the spirit realm with God, how to enter his courts, and we would have encounters, glory. And by the way, none of them got weird. None of them got weird. None of them approached me. None of them said anything that was inappropriate. I didn't say anything inappropriate to them. No one said, "Hey, I want to date you." No, nothing weird happened. And that was God's grace. And because in the will of God, God's grace comes. Doesn't mean the enemy doesn't want it. But, there were several women there, Sherry being one, Cassandra Hall being the other, Hutton at the time. Love her. Margaret Burke, she's my assistant leader at the church. They were there and they were kind of guarding me. They were going to make sure no women got near me in a wrong way. And and that was wonderful. And I did that for about 3 years and I missed those. I started the church and we went after that. And, so now by the way, if you'll just keep us in prayer, we're looking for a new building. I need God to move and give us a building. So I was looking for that. But I think that I used to teach this all the time. I'm not above you. I'm laying my life down for you. And that's the apostolic, and that should be the prophetic. And that's where my heart is. We are to lay our lives down for the saints. And God's going to flip that again because there is still that prevailing, which I don't want to be a part of, which is that trying to build your ministry. It's all about you building your ministry, and what that tends to do is disrupt relationships and all that. And so the Lord spoke to me, said the church is becoming top heavy again, and it will be flipped over and set properly. In other words, we're letting ourselves be exalted unrighteously. God exalts. Let God do the exalting. Doesn't mean people won't get exalted. I think of someone who got exalted. I think of Charlie Shamp. I think that's someone you watch God exalting. I think Todd White the same way. Bill Johnson, certainly in the last 20 years, how God exalted him. And I think sometimes people go out to be exalted, and they want a big ministry. Their dream is to preach to thousands of people, but they won't lift a finger in the beginning. And God wants that shifted. There's too many people going to church, not doing anything for the church. Not I'm going to say my church. My church, a lot of people serve. But I'm just saying, 10%, something like 10% of the people actually serve. The other 90 just come, enjoy, and go. And that's got to shift if the church is going to be effective, if it's going to be salt, if it's going to actually supply what it needs in the lifeblood of society. It has to serve. It doesn't mean you have to be an usher. It means find your ministry, your marketplace ministry, your ministry that God's given you. And you go, well, what does it mean? I'm called to be a lawyer. It's okay. Be a Christian lawyer. In other words, how do I bring the kingdom in my law business? How do I bring, as an air traffic controller, what did it mean for me to be a Christian? It was to influence others for Christ, and it was to change a culture that was nasty when I got there. I mean, it was bad when I got to the FAA. I mean, there was guys having affairs with, it was just bad. Okay, let me just say that it was bad. And everyone knew that as I became a Christian and I studied the Word, my character and the presence of God on my life began to shift atmospheres. So much so that I left. When I didn't retire, I left. God called me to full-time ministry. That when I left, that 2.5 years later, I went back, and I was told by someone who was a non-believer, liberal non-believer heathen, and said to me, you not being here changed the atmosphere for the worse. Like, you brought an atmosphere in the workplace. That's stunning, because I wasn't necessarily, I didn't think of myself that way. I didn't necessarily do things purposefully, which is a shame. I didn't do things to try to offend people. The Word of God was my guide. The Spirit was leading me. I had a lamp to my feet and a light in my pathway. And I was literally just living it out before people. And that impacted, and what happened was even guys who didn't like me called me up years later, some as late as 10 years later, and said, I had to let you know I gave my life to Jesus today. And when I did, I thought about you talking to me about Jesus, and I believe that was a seed, and I just wanted to say thank you. And you want to have that kind of influence. Look, it's time for the prophets and apostles to speak life to those in death. And who are those in death? Those are the ones that are in sin, who don't know Jesus. They're in death. And, I've never raised anyone from the dead. I haven't been around dead people, but, God did use me with a woman who at 21 weeks her body was, she was going to have a miscarriage. And her water was leaking. The doctor says, there's nothing we can do. You're probably going to lose the baby. And somehow at 10:30 at night, I get this message. I call the hospital. The hospital puts me through to the floor. The floor puts me through them. By the way, they never do that. They never do that. They don't let you get through, but they all put me through. And then when I talked to her husband, who I worked with, I said, let me talk to your wife. I said, do you want this baby? Yes. Do you want this baby? Yes. Put the phone on your stomach. And for 20 minutes, I began to prophesy over this child. Just prophesy the life of God. You shall not die. You shall live. And to the doctor's amazement, her water sealed up. She carried the baby to like 33, 34 weeks, and they delivered him. And, last year I was at a travel ball with my son, and here comes my friend Nate, and there's his son, 18 years old, 19 years old. And he always says to his son, this is the guy. And he goes, man, I hear about you all the time. And I told him, I said, God has something great for your life, amazing for your life, for him to do what he did. And I'm just telling you, it's time for the apostles and prophets to really get about setting that foundation of that kind of faith, of that kind of obedience, and that kind of spiritual activity. And I think that's paramount. The other thing I want to say is it is important in this hour, in this muckety-muck mess we're in. It seems like a muckety-muck mess, doesn't it? I want you to thank you for listening to my broadcast and what the Lord's saying to me. By the way, go back. I don't, every week I do one of these, so you can check the playlist out on this. But I do Voice for Restoration broadcasts. These are my weekly ones. It is imperative that you listen to what the prophets are saying. Now, all prophets are not equal. Not all prophets are equally accurate. But it's important that you listen to what the prophets are saying and pray into what they're saying so God can give you your specific strategy in your area. In other words, let's say God gives a strategy, tells you something's going to happen in America. Well, that's the word. Matter of fact, you can see this in the book of Acts. I think it's chapter 14. There's going to be a famine back in Judea. And so then they prayed and got the strategy of how to support them through the famine. And so let's say God says, the prophets say, there's something, there's going to be, let's say, there's going to be a wave 2 of COVID. Don't just sit in your house and go, ugh. No, you go and pray to God, pray to him, get in that courtroom, see and go, God, what am I supposed to do in this hour, in this season? What am I to do now? That is important for us to understand how we move forward and what we're doing. Okay? So, listen, there's Charlie Sham. There's other ones. I would listen to them. They're not all the same. Some are just echoes, which means they're just listening to someone else's prophesying that. That is illegal. What is legal, though, is to hear what another prophet is saying, pray into it, and add what God gives you. We do this when we do prophetic ministry. So that's legal. If you do echo someone else's prophecy, just mention it. Hey, I was reading Charlie's prophecy and I started praying into it, and this is what the Lord showed me. But acknowledge the fact I got here because Charlie's word opened up a portal for me, opened up a gateway for me now to have a target in my prayers. So that's what Daniel does in Daniel chapter 9 with Jeremiah's prophecy. So it's something legal for us to do. But I think that it's really important that we, the apostolic and the prophetic are about to go through a reformation. And I hear like there's going to be a new prophet. No, I don't think we're going to get new prophets. I think we're going to get mature prophets. I think we're going to get seasoned prophets. I don't think God's doing a new thing. He's not creating a new prophet. He's always made the prophets in the new covenant after him. Remember, we're being transformed into his image. Paul didn't get transformed. Paul didn't tell us to get transformed into anyone else's image but God's, but Christ. So I'm not looking to be a prophet according to the image of Elijah. I've done more miracles than Elijah. So why would I want to be relegated to the limited miracles he did? So I hope that blesses you. Again, don't forget to subscribe and like the video and all that stuff. And God bless you. I really think you're going to see the turning of this thing where the church needs to get back to laying in the apostles and prophets, especially them. We need to lay our lives down for the church that we might bring. It doesn't mean we're on call 24/7. It means in prayer, we're laying ourselves down on the altar before the Lord so that he can do what he needs to do in us, through us, and to others. So God bless you, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.